change that back into a mulcher or not. So I'm going to leave it where it is. Windrowing. We are done windrowing for right now. I can actually put this away. Although we'll probably have it out later in the month, either for baling contracts or because I don't think our grass has grown yet, but who knows, that could be a thing. It's probably easiest to stuck this in the middle. Wasn't particularly straight parking, but at least the piece of equipment's straight. Okay, I now need the baler. Grab that. I think for the rest of the tasks I don't have to follow me because I can't do anything automatic. So grab our nice little. I've said before, this is a really nice baler. It's a mod. I think in 19 someone produced an older model with sort of square edges rather than rounded edges, which we used on field mounting, and yeah, this came. I think this came up in a sale, and I just said, yeah, I like this one. It's green. Anyway. And as I've said, this tractor is perfectly capable of running all of the mowing equipment just right now. It's not capable, obviously, of doing whole crop silage or whole crop windrows unless I switch the tyres on it. And that would cost me because I didn't buy narrows for this. We got narrows on the Deutz, so that does all of the crop sensitive work. Okay, guesses on number of bales. I'm thinking we might end up with about 28 to 30. Although there could be a couple more. I don't know if whole crop windrows are sensitive to crop production rates. The fact that this field is in much better condition to the wheat field that we had. Also don't know if whole crop silage production is dependent on the crop that you use. We know that you get more barley per acre than you get wheat, and you get less oats per acre than you get wheat. And so you kind of, I don't know if the whole crop production is crop dependent or whether you cut the crop and it just produces the same amount of whole crop per acre. If that's the case, you do not want to produce whole crop from oats. Oh, shoot, it's only 7,500 litres, so I'm kind of having, they're popping out faster. Anyway, this is good. But at the very least, this field is bigger than the wheat field, so it should produce a couple more bales than we already have. And 4, 5. There we go. Bale production on this particular farm, we are producing the biggest bales that we can because we're using the X tractor, which is the only wrapper that can wrap the biggest bales that you can make. The tow behind square wrapper and is it the Arcusin round wrapper? Oh, I did it again. wrappers. So, oh, it's the converlant. So this one and this one are limited to smaller, medium, smaller, medium, smaller, medium. This one is capable of producing large bales. This one is capable of producing the largest bales wrapped. What's that one? That's the Maize Plus version. I don't know what the difference is. Oh, that's interesting. That can only go up to 220. That can go up to 240. That can go up to 240. But that can only produce 150 rounds, where that can produce 180 rounds. So the Maize Plus wrapper, if you're creating square bales, can produce the biggest. So that's just something to be aware of. I wasn't aware of that. But, well, good to know. In all likelihood, if we do move to square wrappers, I will get the square extractor anyway. So we'll still produce the biggest bales. Also, I seem to be able to work with the extractor much quicker than I can work with. Yeah, it takes less time to wrap. You just have to load it. That takes the time, but you don't have to unload it. The problem with the pull behind wrappers is you have to wait till it unloads. You move forwards, you pick up the bale. It takes quite a long time to wrap it while you're driving to the next bale, but then you have to stop, let it unload, get the next one, and that it just feels like a long, slow job. Whereas with the extractor, you're using some form of front loader skid steer to just drop bales into it. And so that's all you're doing, but you're not waiting for the wrapper at any point. This is frustrating me. I might have to jump back, just grab the Deutz, pick up all the bales, and then go back and get all the bits that have bales on them. Okay, for now, I will run down here. I still have to do that single row at the top. Once that's done, it'll just be good for running the rows. Sadly, unless you have the baler following the windrower, this is not a task you can do with a worker. I think you can do it with course plate only if you've set up the course with your windrower and then just use exactly the same course on the baler. Carefully there. There's a bit there. And this is partially OCD and partially I need as much of this as I can get, because this is the only time of year we can make this stuff. And thus make use of the robot. So as I said, the robot only accepts whole crop silage. We can make, that's not working, obviously we can make grass silage throughout the year. The problem is that we have is the robot doesn't accept it. So we would have to put all of our grass silage into a TMR mixer, and those cost money. And I'd prefer not to spend the money on a TMR mixer right now. Maybe sometime. Like when the robot can't keep up with the number of cows we have, then obviously having a TMR mixer is going to make a little bit of sense. But yeah, as with everything as you start a farm, we're actually on year 4. But even so, when you're starting a farm, you kind of want to maximize the income from the farm as you're working. So equipment doesn't make you more money unless you don't have it and you need it. If you don't have a harvester, then you're going to have to lease one, which means that it's going to cost you money one way or the other. You can lease it, it's a little bit cheaper, but having one means that you don't have leasing costs. Part of the problem with harvesting, especially if you're playing with seasons, is you're probably going to be leasing the harvester for 3 or 4 days. And so that spreads that, you're going to have to pay the overnight cost and whatever else you do. If you can control it so that I need to hire a harvester today, I can do all the harvesting in one day and give it back, then your leasing costs aren't going to be quite so much because you don't have the daily rental cost. And the same is true on any other piece of equipment. I try and avoid leasing tractors just because you always need a tractor, and it's going to cost you a lot of money hourly on tractors if you lease them. I have been known to lease a tractor for a job, and it's a specific job. We get this job done with this tractor and then we give it back, because I do not need to be paying the ongoing cost of the tractor. But equipment, I kind of like to get it all happening at the same time. So, I need to lease a lime spreader. Let's wait until September, and then I'm going to have all of my fields available to lime, and so we'll do them all in one block. Lease it for a day, give it back. But if I can buy the piece of it, I know I need a spreader. So leasing a spreader is an ongoing cost. If I can have one permanently on the equipment roster, then I don't have to worry about exactly when I'm going to lime or fertilize my fields. They're all ready to go. I could do with a manure truck as well, because we are producing, pun intended, a crap ton of manure, and so being able to use it for something other than our little greenhouse is actually a good idea. But that's the manure. But everything else, we now are, apart from maybe a roller, we are now at the point we have all of the equipment we need to make this farm productive in all of the fields. If I wanted to go with maize, I'm going to need a new header for the harvester. So maybe I'm not going to buy maize, or I plant maize for a while. Same with sunflowers, with what's the other stuff? Potatoes and sugar beets. You need a specialist harvester for that. That's an additional expense I can do without. It's much better for me to spend my money on more land. More land always makes you more money. Because, obviously at the moment I got 5 fields, assuming all 5 fields were the same size. If I buy a 6th one, I've just increased my production by 20%. If I buy 2 new fields, I've increased my production by 40%. And so more money every year doing it that way. Buying a bigger harvester does not make me more money, 40% more money. It just means it takes me 40% less time to do the job. Okay. And, oops, missed that bit. I'm going to go around and let that go. As I said, I want as much of this as possible, so we are going to go all out to collect as much of this as possible. Huh. You know what I could do here? Oh no. Shuffle that forward. We lift the arm up, and I can back off, and I'm not in contact with it. Yeah, that works. Anyway, all the fun of baling, and yeah, I am very conscious that we do spend a lot of our time baling on this farm, because our major source of income is obviously our grass silage, because we have a huge grass field. And then once we went maize plus, we discovered, well, it's not quite as useful as we thought it was, but the dirt on that field, I think it's almost 100% clay, is just not productive at all. So you're kind of looking at, do I really want to even try to grow a crop on this, because it's the yield's going to be the worst. Okay, I think I'm not even going to try the rest of that. However, the other one, it might be possible. I think pushing them on the straight side tends to slide them out of the way. And oh, or push them over. Well, that works too. I think that might be easier to slide now. Oh yeah. Okay, back to the row. And we're full again. Ugh. I didn't look at the bale count before we started. I could have said, oh, we've done 733 bales, and then see how many we do at the end, but I didn't, so that's just me. So, we've got a couple of tasks to do here. Our John Deere's finished doing its thing. Again, I know it hasn't gone to the edge of the field, so we're going to have to tidy that up. But I'm kind of... We're not in a big hurry to get canola in the ground. We've got August 2 and August 3, I don't have to roll it immediately either. I just have to roll it in the month that we planted it. So if I want to buy that little cheap roller, I can do, and I can roll it August 2 or August 3. It's no big deal. And I can always move... Oh shoot, did it again? I can always move the John Deere over to the other field, next game day or the day after, and that'll be fine. Just so long as I've got enough time to seed and roll, I'll let it go. We'll drop bales in the wrong place. We'll come back for them once we pick them all up. Because otherwise I'm just going to be pushing bales for ages. So, the cherry's rolling backwards. So we took the rug out of the office because the office chairs were getting caught up, snagged up on it. The problem is that it's not a problem most of the time, but when I'm playing Farming Simulator and I've got the steering wheel and pedals, there's no friction on the wheels, so I find myself slowly rolling backwards, and the vehicle I'm driving gets slower and slower and slower as I have to stretch my leg further and further away from myself until I get to the point where I should probably move the chair back up to the desk again. Oh. Not enough in the row to finish the bale. Well, there's that. And yeah, did it. How many more rows we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. About 11. Leasing the biggest harvester and header plus water starting. I have done that. I mean, the thing to consider even on this farm is we are now well into our 4th harvest, maybe 5th. This is the first year we have owned a harvester. I've leased it every single year up to now. But I haven't held it for the entire year. I have let it go as soon as the harvest is done. And that's actually a common startup on our Saturday streams. Oakfield Farm, we didn't start with the harvester. Lawfolds, we didn't start with the harvester. We leased them for the first 2-3 years. This is where we went 4 years before. We leased 3 years before we bought one, and now that we've bought one, we're good. I don't have to worry about that cost, and I don't have to worry about, well, I've got some things that can be harvested in July and some things that can be harvested in August, and my harvest is running all the way to November, and I don't worry too much because I'm not paying the daily cost on the harvester. It's now something that is permanently on the equipment roster. But I have done, I'm not averse to leasing equipment. The thing is with our milk production, I've leased a vehicle with an engine. That's an expensive lease. And eventually, once the lease to purchase cost has reduced, I will pay for it. So I'm not having to worry about a daily leasing cost on that truck. But the counterpoint to that is I have to use that truck every single day, or lease it once a quarter and make 10 trips with it. I decided the daily cost on the truck isn't that big, and it also reduces the final cost of the truck because everything you pay on the truck reduces the current purchase cost on it. So I'm it was something typically I'm not comfortable doing, but for that one piece of equipment it just made all the sense. So we have a leased milk truck. Now if I was producing base game quantities of milk, no, I wouldn't have a truck permanently on the roster. I would probably use one of the little tractor hauled tankers to drag 5,000 litres of milk to the dairy per day or month or whatever it worked out at. But we're playing maize plus, so 10%, 10 times production for cows on milk and natural fertilisation products. And I am of an understanding that if you don't empty the slurry and you don't empty the slurry, maybe if you don't empty the manure and they get full, the milk production stops as well. So you've got to keep all of the tanks empty or not full so the production maintains that. Yeah, and yeah, that's the other thing. I look at purchasing the harvester because I know I need it quite frequently. We got lucky. My harvester was in the store sales. Actually, I've seen 4 harvesters in the store sales. I think the second year there was the Class Taurian, and I thought, oh, that would be a really nice harvester to own. But I didn't have the cash because the crop income was 2 months out. And then the following month there was a Class Lexian on store sale, and again, well, I'm still a month away from actually getting income, but do I want to spend 300,000 on a harvester when I can spend 300,000 on some land? At this stage, we're still, the little harvester we have is 25-foot header. It's got an 8,600 litre tank. It's perfectly adequate for the number of fields we've got, and happens to be our starting harvester on both Lawfolds and Oakfield Farm. So it's kind of a tradition with us to get the that sort of mid-sized harvester, small vent. We will eventually have a big harvester. I'm not sure it's going to be as big as a Lexian or as big as a John Deere X9, but we're going to need a big one because we're going to have a lot of fields that need to be harvested at the same time, and just having the header width and the tank capacity just makes it so that we can do all the work we need to do in the time we have. But at the moment, the harvester we have does all the work we need to do in the time we have, and we still have time left over. But yeah, I mean, obviously, end of this year, I want to buy more land. I'd like to buy that field next to us, which has canola in ready to harvest, but doesn't have a contract. 56 is tiny. It's not a mad, I need this field. I mean, this field is big and will seriously increase our income. This field is not quite as big as 49 and not quite as big as 50, but it's good. 62 is conveniently across the road from us. 48, 41, all of the fields sort of, we've got this one, and not these two. But if I draw a square from there across and then up to 61, maybe not some of these fields because they're kind of difficult for us to get to, but all the ones that are green or orange or blue or purple could be good purchases for us, and I'd like to buy those so that the farm is producing more. I don't have my volume up high enough, so I'm not hearing it. That's the problem. But yeah, it's a case of getting the land